Hey everyone, it's me, John Lorden, and I'm back with another edition of BrainScratch. Now, I've had several people ask me for an update on Jade Helm, so I did a little digging around, and also the Walmart situation, so did some digging on that today, and we're going to crack into it. But first, I just wanted to start with a couple of shout-outs for commenters. I really love, I've noted this in several videos, at how well people are getting along with each other, especially people that have different points of view. There is huge value when you have opposing points of view if both people can stay considerate and leave the space for those opposing points of view. This show is geared for people to think. If you come into this show thinking that you already have the answer, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. If we all leave just a little room around our assumptions for philosophy, for the possibility of learning, it really adds to this experience. So I wanted to thank all of you, particularly because I thought this thread would be a hot button thread, and even though there's some people disagreeing, you guys are doing a pretty good job at not, just reverting to blatant name calling and ridiculous stuff that we see in YouTube threads all the time. So just wanted a quick shout out to Mona Carmona, Warm Wishes, El Choya 100, Roman Newicki, Iron Tomahawk, Michael Atkey, Renegade Times, and Delta 74, and they really had a good little back and forth. And I think that Delta 74 summed it up nicely when he said, "There's much we agree on. Whether or not we agree on everything is not important. The things we have in common are enough. I just hope the tide turns sooner than later." Very well stated. Also a quick shout out for Anthony Wright. So what's going on here? Basically, you're probably doing yourself a disservice if you don't look into this case with some info on your own. Just know that I'm going to take all the links that are part of this video, and they're going to be down in the description so you can read through those. And some of them are very hefty reads. They're going to take some time. But they're really worth it. This, obviously, I don't have the answer here. I'll never profess to have the answer on these BrainScratch videos. I only point to information. I might talk about how I'm feeling about that information, but that's as far as I'm going to take it. It's really for you to do the footwork and kind of dig in with me and hopefully come to your own conclusions. So just doing a quick search on Jade Helm, particularly for the news stories. It's really interesting right now. This is being filmed on June 4th, and the news stories are literally going tit for tat. You will see one news story that is, wow, Jade Helm has a bunch of wacko conspiracy theory people being crazy, and then the next news story is, hey, these conspiracy theories have merit and we need to understand why people are freaked out by this because that's pointing to a truth. And I think ultimately there is something to be said about this. I mean, this operation will be moving military equipment through public spaces. Everyone should always be concerned about that. There's going to be weapons with blanks. There's going to be aircraft flying in the middle of the night. There's going to be a lot of things that would scare a normal American that's not used to experiencing those. Not all of us live around military bases. So I think that's something to just kind of keep in mind as we dive into this. But yeah, do yourself a favor, at least do a Google News search and see how these articles are literally going left, right, back, forth. It's really crazy. Mainstream media has jumped all over this. Jon Stewart has said some pretty funny stuff about it. I think Bill Maher has just started piping up about it. And almost in an unfortunate turn, Alex Jones keeps getting brought into this conversation. And for anyone that doesn't know, Alex Jones, he runs Infowars.com, and Prison Planet is another website of his, and he is what I would consider an extreme conspiracy theorist. He's someone that will, he gets in front of a microphone and is just yelling into the microphone his feelings. He's extremely passionate, and quite honestly, I enjoy watching him, but I always do so with that grain of salt about this guy. He's really built up a a viewing experience where it's almost like watching information coming at you from someone that works with the WWE or in professional wrestling or something. His energy level is through the roof, which if you recognize it as entertainment is fine. If you consider him a news source, may not be as fine. So his name keeps getting put up in this, and pretty typically in the articles I'm seeing, he's being used as an anchor to try to move this whole idea of Jade Helm 15 into a conspiracy theory. See, even Alex Jones is saying this and he's saying that. And the truth of it is, his position on it right now is that he doesn't believe that it means it's a martial law takeover that's going to happen right now. He believes this is part of a program of conditioning, of desensitizing us to seeing troops roaming around, of seeing this type of equipment trotted through our country. And you know, in the first video I did on this, I kind of noted that people that are superpowers, we saw this in Nazi Germany, you see this in Russia today, they like to trumpet, literally carry their arms through the towns, and it sets an intimidation factor into people. And is that something that this country was based on, intimidating our citizens? I don't think so. So anyway, do yourself a favor and check out some articles on it. Hopefully I'll get you started. Wikipedia has its own article that's a pretty good primer kind of on it overall, and I just wanted to point out this. They had this really concise blurb here. According to the Hartford Courant's Jim Shea, the conspiracy theories about Jade Helm 15 include a psychological operation aimed at getting people used to seeing military forces on the streets so they don't realize when an invasion actually takes place, which is a very interesting thought. An international operation aimed to seize people's guns. Recently closed Walmarts used by the military to stockpile supplies for Chinese troops who will be arriving to disarm Americans. And a plan to round up political dissidents and remove key political figures who may be against the imposition of martial law. So you can see the theories go pretty wide, and they go from subtle, kind of the idea that they're conditioning us to weaponry and military forces, to more extreme, Walmart's being used by China to collect our arms and possibly staff their troops. Snopes, and this is an article specifically about Walmart. I did some searching really into that specifically because I'm still seeing videos that are a little strange. They're showing Walmarts that now have these closed Walmarts that have fences put up around them. I saw another closed Walmart video where they have added barbed wire all along the top perimeter of the store. Just some strange things happening at closed Walmarts. So here, Snopes has its theories about why the Walmarts are closed. The first one is the theory that it's a form of union busting. This one keeps coming up because Pico Rivera was one of the stores that really started piping up about the conditions of working there and how they could be better. However, that theory doesn't really hold up with some of the other stores who did not have a history of doing that. Their second theory here is the closures are linked to the U.S. Army's Jade Helm military exercise scheduled for the summer of 2015. The imposition of martial law, and the construction of so-called FEMA domes across Texas. This theory doesn't account for why Walmart stores in states far outside the geographic range of the Jade Helm exercises, for example Florida and Oklahoma, should also be closed. I'm going to jump ahead here because what is interesting about that is the exercises have now been modified. Let's see here. Here we go. Basically, the range of land that they're doing these exercises on has now been altered. Here we are, a little over a month away from the exercise starting, and it's been altered pretty considerably. Originally, it was only to take place in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. Colorado somehow completely pulled out of the exercise, and I'm not sure how they did that and how these other states have just kind of stayed in it. However, Mississippi, Florida, and Louisiana have now been added to the list. So now there are 9 states participating, almost a fifth of this country. And actually California is such a huge state, but they're using just the southmost tip of it, supposedly. That's a pretty significant swatch of land, and also includes one of those closed Walmarts that was in Florida. Oklahoma still does not appear to be part of this, but logistically, with where it's located in relation to North and South U.S., it's still close enough to Southern U.S. that I think it could be used in some way for military exercise or something else. I have no idea. So, other theories on Snopes. The affected stores received radioactive food shipments from the Fukushima region of Japan, the site where the nuclear power plant melted down after the 8.9 earthquake in March 2011. Another theory is that Walmart violated local and federal building codes in erecting their stores, and they're trying to use a cover story to explain the closures while they fix it. Another one is that they closed the stores in order to avoid having to pay out damages for some unspecified lawsuits. This one is pretty interesting and actually comes up a lot in kind of conspiracy theories. The closed Walmart stores are being converted into giant entrance facilities for a deep network of underground tunnels that the U.S. military will use to deep underground military bases, also called DUMBs. That is a heck of a theory, and it's weird because people that are against that conspiracy theory are asking, the logistics for building those tunnels would be crazy. I'm wondering if there are existing tunnel networks already, and these are just being kind of created as entrance points to those tunnels, which is kind of what this suggests. And if you like that, not like it, but if that conspiracy theory kind of tickles you at all, do yourself a favor and look into the lower levels of, I believe it's the Denver airport in Colorado. If I'm not right on that, someone please drop a comment below and let me know, but I believe it's Denver airport. There is, we know for a fact, a lower level that cannot be accessed by employees of the airport there. Seems to be office buildings of some kind. I actually watched a documentary where they got to kind of the last door that employees can get to, and it just seems like a very strange place to put offices. There was also some question about who funded that airport being rebuilt and how much money was sunk into it, because it was a huge amount of money for what actually stands there, at least above ground. So, do these DUMBs exist? I don't know for certain, but if that tickles your fancy, check out that story, and I think you will enjoy cracking into that. And of course, we get down to the closed Walmart stores will be used as food distribution centers and housing for invading troops from China here to disarm Americans. I personally find that one really hard to believe. Sam Walton has been tied into the government at a pretty high level since about the 90s. I mean, this is the kind of guy that would pal around with George Bush Sr. He was given, I think, one of the highest accreditations that a citizen can be given from the government in 1992, if I remember correctly. If anything, I can pretty easily believe that Walmarts are operating in conjunction with methods being developed by the Department of Homeland Security. I can believe that quite easily. Can I believe that they, for some reason, would back China in some kind of takeover of this country? I personally, it's a real hard pill to swallow. Some people might argue that so much of their product is created from China, and some people would say using slave labor, and that it's a key part of their business. But like I said, just with his ties into the government that has been demonstrated, that we know for certain, I really have a hard time believing that Walmart would partake in that, personally. All right, moving along. So, what about Walmart? Have they come out and finally stated what is going on with these closed stores? Well, yes, finally they have. This article is from WSTP.com, 10 News, and was published on May 15th. And they very plainly say, we're happy to announce that we are now ready to request some of the initial permits that may be needed to begin demolition for the work required when we finalize the design plans, said Walmart spokesperson Amanda Hennenberg. The way that is phrased is very clunky and is basically saying wait till later. And I can tell you, I've done research on other articles, and there are city officials still saying they have not seen any permits. There are local citizens still saying they are not seeing any activity. Former employees of these Walmarts are still piping up saying we don't believe that this has anything to do about plumbing. Walmart has actually changed position about firing all of these employees, and now is attempting to do something to get some of them settled into other stores, although they're noting that they're not getting the same hours. Some of them have their benefits dropped, and there is now talk of potentially rehiring some of them when these stores reopen, and none of that existed before. Is it all PR spin? It makes for a good news article and definitely helps your company image with a country that's going, what the hell did you do to these few thousand employees? But even the employees that were essentially, their lives were touched by the closing of these stores, it seems like there's a lot of them that don't really believe this plumbing excuse. All right. Like I was mentioning before, there's articles on both sides of Jade Helm, and it's strange because some of them come from the point of view of, hey guys, this is just a military exercise. We have military exercises happen all the time. There is nothing strange about this. And in particular, there seems to be a desire for people to divide this belief in between Democrats and Republicans, making this kind of a Republican cause. Well, the Republicans are piped up because they're saying that we're going to come on their land and take away their guns, is kind of the quick assumption about it. This is an article from Vox.com, and Rep. Louis Gohmert, according to this author, kicked things up to a level of gross irresponsibility in his statement when he said he could certainly understand Jade Helm worries, and casts the blame on the matter not on the conspiracy theorists but on the military and the Obama administration. Once I observed the map depicting hostile, permissive, and uncertain states and locations, I was rather appalled that the hostile areas amazingly have a Republican majority. And if you look at the map, there is some question about that. Although, worth noting, they did do the map in red and blue. I think there's a picture of it here. Here we go. And I believe that people have just so strongly associated these red and blue colors with the political parties that it's causing some people to see that linkage very quickly. Texas, I believe, is largely Republican. I don't think Arizona is largely Democratic. So there's some question about these colors and do they really apply to that comment. I think I like to point back to the comment of our good friend Delta 7-4 here and say whether or not we agree on everything is not important. There's something to be concerned about here. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of these articles that are saying this is just a military exercise. This is just a military exercise. And there's evidence to kind of speak to the contrary of that. By their own admission, this is the largest military exercise to ever take place in this country. So it's a little different than just a military exercise. As a matter of fact, Chuck Norris popped into the media. I think Jon Stewart might have made a crack about him. A lot of people took shots at him over his comments, and I just wanted to read his update here. If this advertisement will get out of my way. Let's see. I never ever said that 7-state U.S. military operation intended to take over Texas. However, I did in fact mention that Jade Helm 15 is likely more than a military exercise. I do believe in addition to the largest domestic military training, it is also a display of power near the southern border, intended for deterrence of enemies like ISIS and other terrorists, who the FBI have already said are present in all 50 states. Doesn't sound like such a wackadoodle comment to me, but apparently he was misquoted at some point. And the belief was that he said that they were coming to take over Texas. This is a slide from the actual Jade Helm presentation, and this link's going to be below if you want to check out this presentation page for yourself. There is also a video link below of the presentation actually being given to, I think it's in Bishop. It's part of the official Texas presentation. But I just wanted to cover a few slides here. I thought it was interesting that they even had a slide that said why Texas and why they would not have slides to address the other 6 states. Just kind of talk about a brain scratch, kind of gave me a little to think about. To hone advanced military skills, the military and interagency require large areas of undeveloped land with low population densities with access to towns. I'm going to stop there for a second, because what I find curious about that is we actually have bases. The Army built a fake city in Virginia to train its troops. We've spent, I think, if I saw right, it was about $90 million to develop this base. And it has a school, a church, a mosque, a subway station, and even an embassy. There's a picture of a mosque. There's a picture of the subway station. Also, the National Training Center at Fort Irwin in California has a fake Middle Eastern village, complete with vendors selling plastic bread and meat. So there are locations where they can conduct this type of training that, quite frankly, this country's already paid for. And they've been built specifically for that type of training, and if you go do operations there, you're obviously not going to upset the citizens that live around that base, because they're aware of what it's like to live around a base that does that type of training. But specifically, they mentioned some specific challenges that they're trying to address here. The first one is operating outside the normal support mechanisms. Adapting to unfamiliar terrain, social, and economic conditions. Operating in and around communities where anything out of the ordinary will be spotted and reported. Locals are the first to notice something out of place. That is part of what, even considering this is just a military training exercise, that's part of what I have a problem with. They're literally depending on fooling the public into these events that are staged being truly odd, not criminal, but something wrong enough that the public is going to call this into the emergency resources. That means that the 911 centers are going to get basically false calls. So that point in particular kind of strikes me. The opportunity to work with civilians to gain their trust and an understanding of the issues. And I hope that's talking about the planning phase, because if they're talking about the actual execution of a military exercise, what other countries are like America in terms of their civilian population? Most of the wars that we've been fighting, I don't think, are in English-speaking countries. So that one also kind of hits me a bit strange. What to expect? Write in big, bold letters right at the top, increased military presence. And I think that is why part of this conspiracy about them trying to acclimate us to seeing a military presence is popping up like this. They call it out huge on their own slide. Increased aircraft in the area at night. May receive noise complaints. Some individuals may conduct suspicious activities designed to prepare them for complex environments overseas. That's part of what I'm talking about. They're literally relying on the public to view people that are being suspicious and respond to them. Well, the initial response for someone viewing someone else being suspicious is probably fear. And I don't think that's a good method of operation for a training exercise or a good way to treat civilians, personally. Local LEOs, law enforcement officers, are fully aware of the exercise. Local footprint will be 60 to 65 personnel. Personnel may be carrying weapons with blank ammo. Some participants will be wearing civilian attire and driving civilian vehicles. So you quite possibly could see someone that you think is a criminal, an armed criminal, possibly firing, and that's not going to affect you in some way psychologically as a citizen of this country. It's really, no, I'm not a big fan of it. Safety measures. Daily communications between DoD and LEA. I believe that's the Department of Defense and local enforcement agencies. Medics located with each element, which I find interesting if you're truly conducting ops where you're moving people from one place to another and you're not supposed to be able to identify them, you're going to have an ambulance follow them. Doesn't seem quite right. Coordination with life flight and local medical facilities. Exercise support team with communications. Now here's one that's really odd to me. Clear marking of exercise participants. Use of keywords to determine exercise participation. Well, which is it? Or are they saying it's both? If you have a blue armband on all of the participants, you don't need keywords. And what was stated earlier is you're going to have people in civilian clothes, so they're not going to have blue armbands. There seems to be this whole aspect that is not being considered about the potential. I mean, if I was a criminal, this is a great time to go do some crime while all this other nonsense is going on. Not only is local law enforcement going to be engaged in these other exercises, but people are going to be acclimated to seeing people do strange things. It just doesn't seem extremely well thought out. Thorough risk mitigation assessment, which is what I'm questioning, and they're definitely not demonstrating with this document. Coordination with local residents, verbal and written, so they're definitely going to interact with people. Fire conditions reviewed prior to each scenario. That one's important because a lot of these areas are dry land. It could be that flying certain types of aircraft over this land, just the jet exhaust could change the conditions on the ground enough that you could potentially cause a fire. So that one's really important. Fire extinguisher and other equipment located at each site, and Public Affairs Office will make public announcement regarding exercise. So that's it for the safety measures, and then of course we have this logo with the statement, "Master the human domain" under it. And man, if you don't want to whip up the conspiracy theories, don't use a statement like that. What the hell does that mean? Master the human domain? Our special forces are here to master the human domain. It literally doesn't make sense. The logo, I believe, that looks like a shoe or something in the middle of it. I don't even know what the hell that image is. But you've got a knife, a couple of arrows. Is that one of those wooden shoes? I have no idea what that even is. So this whole last slide, quite honestly, I probably would have cut from the presentation, and I bet you would have dropped a bunch of the conspiracy theories. That statement is really, really odd. That looks like a clog. It looks like... Are we going after Denmark? Is that what I'm supposed to assume here? I don't know. Okay, so there is this great article on whowhatwhy.org, and this article goes into so many different aspects. I almost could do a video just reading this article straight through. They have a very good approach to analyzing what's going on around this. They've got good links to other research you can check out. But in particular, why is Jade Helm setting off so many alarm bells? Is this business as usual, or a practice for martial law, as Jade Helm critics contend? What makes Jade Helm different from previous military exercises carried out on U.S. civilian soil? This is where the information is flying fast and furious. In his presentation in Big Springs, USA SOC contractor Meade acknowledged that the exercise is actually the first of its kind. Kind of like what I'm saying. He told the audience that the closest he could come to identifying an operation somewhat resembling Jade Helm is the Army's much smaller annual exercise known as Robin Sage. In Robin Sage, the People's Republic of Pineland is a fictitious country spanning 15 counties in North Carolina where U.S. Special Forces seek out insurgents, played by actors, who for the purpose of the exercise are treated as U.S.-backed freedom fighters. Treated as U.S.-backed freedom fighters. Wow. Special Forces set up base camps for these fighters with the goal of, quote, liberating Pineland. As such, Robin Sage was a proactive insurgency exercise. Jade Helm seems to be precisely the opposite, a counter-insurgency exercise. Despite this difference, Robin Sage does offer a stark illustration of what can go wrong when armies set loose in a civilian countryside. In 2002, one soldier was killed and another wounded when a local police officer opened fire on them, not knowing they were part of the Robin Sage exercise. To my point, it's the logistics of carrying this out. It's strange because their own documentation is saying that they are anticipating that this exercise will be good for them to take into account things that they can't take into account. And what this is pointing out is when you have situations like that where you're trying to improvise, accidents can happen. People can get hurt. In this video here, I'm just going to show you a snapshot. Honestly, if you only watch one link from this, make it this video, because here you can see them actually give the presentation. You can get a sense of their tone. There's a really strange moment in this presentation where, to me, it almost feels like he's telling these local city officials, hey, we've already approved this with the people at the state level, and we've already talked to all the enforcement people under you, and everyone's fine with it, so we're here to ask for your acceptance of this. It seemed kind of slimy in a way to me. But at the end of this video, I'm not sure if this is the same copy, but it should be. There is a woman that comes up to give comments, and she works at a convalescent home, and her primary concern is, how do you explain this to elderly people and have them not get completely freaked out? I mean, they wake up in the middle of the night, they hear helicopters buzzing overhead and gunshots outside. It could induce trauma to them that could be quite serious. Outside of that, like I've mentioned, there are the considerations about land, how land's being handled. I used to do Civil War reenactments. We would only fire black powder, and you would occasionally set off a fire because the black powder would spark some dry element on the ground. There's a lot of safety aspects to consider here, and it's strange when one side of this presentation is saying, hey, we need to experience these things that we can't anticipate, and the other side is saying, but we're going to have all the support needed to anticipate any problems. The truth of it is you just cannot have it both ways. If you're going to truly be mitigating risk, you have to understand the situations you're going into, and that's not the focus of this exercise. As a matter of fact, if they were doing that, they could just go back to those bases I showed you and use the existing towns that this country is also already paid to be built, specifically for this type of training. Whew. Wow. Well, tell me, brain scratchers, what do you think? Is there something else to this exercise? Are you part of the conspiracy camps? Are you part of the this is business as usual? Please drop your input and comments below, and thank you so much for supporting this show. I really appreciate it. And once again, I'll just say it, I appreciate you guys respecting each other's comments and points of view, and sharing information like that is a huge benefit. I've learned so much from the comment threads on these videos, so thank each and every one of you that does that. And thank you especially if you're one of the people that actually shares these videos with other folks and adds to the conversation, because I believe that is a huge benefit for everyone that's involved. I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you on the next Brain Scratch. Take care.